eventually hand over the mantle to the next generation, the nieces and the granddaughters whose turn it now is to spin gold. I was introduced to Kiara Vigo by my friend Kitty McFarlane, a singer-songwriter whose beautifully crafted song Sea Silk explores Vigo's precious legacy. My grandmother wove in me a tapestry that was impossible to unwind, Vigo says. Since then, I've dedicated my life to the sea, just as those who have come before me. Just like Vigo, I too feel unable to remove myself from the women who came before me. I am formed by them. I place my own feet in the prints left by their steps. Their tapestry is woven in me. In the late 1800s, on the other side of the Atlantic, Harriet Powers, a freed woman who was born enslaved in Georgia, was weaving and spinning gold of her own. Using the techniques and storytelling often found in the textiles of Western Africa, passed down to her from her mother and other African American women, Harriet Powers learned the art of appliqué quilt making. In 1886, she made her Bible quilt, rich in its narrative, infused with her own personality, and telling Powers' favourite Bible stories. It caught the eye of Jenny Smith, a white artist and teacher who tracked Powers down, desperate to buy it. But Harriet Powers refused. It was not for sale at any price. Years later, however, at the instigation of her husband, in a period of desperate financial hardship, Powers, who had kept in touch with Smith, offered to sell her beloved quilt for a price of $10. Smith was going through difficulties of her own and offered $5. Powers hesitated, but her husband insisted, and the deal was made. Powers' quilt was sold. Then, Harriet Powers did the unexpected. In a glorious reclamation of her work, ensuring that it would forever remain a part of her, she painstakingly described to Smith every single block of its 229 separate pieces of fabric stitched together. Smith wrote the descriptions down, and they live on. Woven into their fabric, so too does Powers' strength, as a woman and as an artist, as does her deep religious faith. Powers' quilts told stories. They were narratives woven from her own experiences and brought to life by age-old crafts and skills she had learned from her ancestors. For her, quilt making was not just an art form. It was a resistance. It was a reclamation of what was rightfully hers, a recreation of the story of her life, and a resilience to the difficulties she faced. It points to the extraordinary tenacity of Black women to survive over hundreds of years in the face of hardship. It points to their ability to weave the salty waters of the sea into silk of the finest gold. Not quite satisfied, Harriet Powers left one final legacy. Having taught herself to read through sheer determination via her slave master's children, a rare thing for any Black woman at the time, let alone one who was enslaved, Powers wrote and left behind a letter. She references several of her other creations, letting us know that she made at least 5 quilts even as early as 1882. Not only did she craft a tapestry of the most exquisite order, capturing the legacy of her life, but she left a record, a secret code to be passed down to all who came after her. In this code, she showed the world precisely what an aged Negro woman, bearing her soul, an alchemist weaving gold out of her own fingertips, was capable of. Knowing this about Harriet Powers makes me feel capable. It infuses in me not only the tentative seeds of inspiration, but also the grounding weight of a responsibility to weave the threads of my story into gold, a tapestry of my own for those who will come after. I wrote this book to bring together stories of Black women's resistance across generations and to highlight their joy. I wrote it in celebration of the past and present stories of extraordinary women turning their pain into acts of glittering defiance, their reclaiming, their recreating, and their resilience. In doing so, I hope we can permanently correct a historical record, change a narrative,